Peace, 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 love, harmony, and light. I'm gonna wait for some audio right now. Make sure that audio is good. Give me a second. Love, harmony, and light. All right, beautiful. Okay, so we have audio. I'm gonna give you guys, some like a few of you, some time to get onto this live feed. Like I said before, we have work to do. Hey, peace, 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 brother. Peace. We have peace, my sister. We have work to do. We have work to do. So I'm gonna give a few people some time to chime in because like I said, man, the time is nigh, and we cannot afford to take a seat or relax. The negative forces, the so-called devil, Satan, and try to put things in the way to stop me. Like I said, man, I'm chosen. I'm chosen for this, and I'll say it again. I was destined to come. So there's nothing y'all could do to stop this. And a lot of people think this is ego. A lot of people think this is, being, how would I call it? Yeah, people think it's being egotistical. No, it's not about being egotistical. It's about is to know who I am. You know what I'm saying? Is to know the connection that I have with my ancestors. Is to know the connection that I have with the Most High. You know what I'm saying? That I communicate with, during meditation is what they show me, what I know. And like I tell people, I was destined to come. Y'all can't stop this. So all the negativity and all the lie that was told is being revealed. You know what I'm saying? And like I told y'all before, my mother probably didn't know who was being manifested through her when she had me. But I told y'all before, go look up the definition. I ain't got nothing to hide. I'm still showing my face. Go look at the definition of the name that my mother gave me, not who I am, but the name that she gave me, because it's just a name. All right. Like I always tell you guys, the spirit has no name, has no names. We have no names. Okay. We are known as. And the name that my mother gave me was Kenrick, Kenrick. Go look at the meaning of that name. So this is in my DNA. Okay. This was a spiritual manifestation for me to be here doing this. And there is nothing that nobody could do to stop it. Nobody, period. So go look at the definition and the meaning of that name, Kenrick, Kenrick. It means ruler, family ruler, chieftain. I didn't make that up. Okay. Again, I was destined to come. So it's all good. What are some suggestions to be able to communicate with the Most High? I mean, we'll talk about that, Patrick. I mean, everybody. For me, I tell people, a lot of people subscribe to to them. Different people have a different meaning when they speak of Most High. When I speak of Most High, I'm speaking of the universal all. All right, I'm speaking of the great I am. I am not speaking of the so-called given God they gave us in the Bible. This lunatic, that hate women. This how would I call it? This wow. I don't even know how to describe it, but I don't subscribe to that kind of God in the Bible. I know that may scare a lot of people, but that's just my thing. I don't believe that we could explain what the Most High is in a book. Okay, I don't think we could do that. And that alone in itself is proof and clue enough to show you that something is wrong. Anytime you could take the all and be able to put the all in a book and tell you that's the only way, then there's a problem. So I don't subscribe to that. But to answer your question, Patrick, it's about each of us, we have that I am in us. Okay. What does that mean? It means that we have that, how would I put it? That dot. Okay. That it's like an ocean. All right. Let's just say the best way I could describe it is this way. Let's say the ocean is the universal creator, the universal all, what you call God, right? If you take, let's just say there is about let's say we only had 2 million people on Earth. Now, if you take a cup from the ocean, if each cup from the ocean, 2 million cups from the ocean, and you put it in different parts of the world, the water in the ocean is the oil. Therefore, the water in those cups is the oil. So what I'm saying is, where we are at on earth, we are still the oil. And like it said in Psalms, the allegorical Jesus said that ye are gods. Okay. So when I communicate to the oil, I speak to the oil as if I am in the oil. I am part of the oil because I am. So I communicate like I speak to a mother and a father. You know what I mean? Like I told y'all before, so as above, so is below. If you have a physical mother, you have a physical father, and a physical father, you have a spiritual and mother and father. So that's how I communicate. I speak to them as if they were here. I ask questions, but of course I do that in my mind. I do it through meditation. I do it in moments of silence. Okay. Now, how do I get answers? How do I get revelations? Well, you have to do it in a moment of silence. It's the only way it's going to happen. You see, they give us so many distractions that we don't take the time to go within to speak to our spiritual parents. Okay? The truth of the matter is, and I don't want you guys to take this personal, the truth of the matter is, most of us, our physical parents have abandoned us. Okay? They have led us down a wrong path. It may not seem that way, but it is that way. Some of them, it's intentional. Some of them, it's not intentional. It is because of what they were taught. But the truth of the matter is, this has to be a spiritual thing. And again, a lot of people are saying, well, you know what? I'm not religious. I'm spiritual. Well, the truth is, each and every one of us is spiritual. So spirituality is not a cult. Spirituality is not a religion. Okay. Spirituality for me is just an awareness that we have a spirit in us. That's what true spirituality is. You know what I mean? So saying that well, I'm not religious, I'm spiritual. Well, again, my question to you is, what does that mean? What does it mean to you? Because we all have spirits, therefore we are all spiritual. But being aware that your spirit is supposed to be in charge of the physical man and woman, that is the true nature of spirituality. And for those of us that's walking around saying we're spiritual, we are missing that true essence of what spirituality means, because we are still running around fighting each other. We're still running around murdering each other. We're still going around hating each other. Okay. We're still going around spreading rumors and propaganda against each other. That is not spirituality, because the spirit doesn't condone hatred. The spirit doesn't project or condone fear. So how can you say you are spiritual, or you are, you don't practice religion, but you're practicing spirituality, but yet still you hate a brother and you hate a sister? No, that's called hypocrisy. That means you are still lost. And for me, that's why I know victory is mine, because I know who I am. You see, I have gone through the pits of hell. I have. And I have reason. Okay? I know who I am. And that's the key. Mastering self. Okay? Coming into a certain level of awareness to know that you could communicate with your spiritual parents without that middleman, that they said that the only way to get to the Father is through the Son. That's a myth. It's like having 20 children, okay, as parents, and you're telling 19 of your children, hey, don't come talk to me unless you talk to my only begotten son. Well, my question to you is, what is the definition of begotten? You see, a lot of people don't read for themselves. They just sit around and allow a man or a woman to stand on a pulpit and tell them what things mean without learning to read and understand for themselves. Well, I'm going to look at the definition of begotten, and we'll see. Okay, here we go. All right. Because you see, reading is fundamental. Okay. It says, and that's off of Google, begotten, the past participle of beget. Let us look at the definition of beget. So you guys could check that out for yourself. It says, typically of a man, sometime of a man and a woman bring a child into existence by the process of reproduction. That is what it means to beget. So when the Bible speaks of my begotten son, what are they insinuating? Is that the only son that the Most High had? You see what I'm saying? So again, going back to that, it's like, hold on for 1 second. Hold on. All right. So speaking of the begotten son, we have all begotten. In other words, we all came from the Creator, the Most High, right? So why pick one man, one child, okay, and say, well, you know what? The rest of you, the millions and billions of you on earth, don't come to me directly, but go through this one child named Jesus. Come on, like, let's be real. And I'm not making this video about religion, but I'm just trying to show you the foundation of the brainwash, okay? Where people are being led astray. For you to believe that story, you have to believe that the Creator has favoritism. You see what I'm saying? And that's impossible. The Most High love all of their children equally. All right. And we, you, I, each and every one of us have the same potential and opportunity to go speak to our spiritual parents directly. And we don't need a middleman. Okay. So again, Jesus was a nickname for Yeshua. And Yeshua, again, it wasn't supposed to be a man that came to be worshipped. Okay, it was just a man that came, an enlightened man, so to speak, that came, that was begotten with the knowledge that we are seeking right now. And the allegorical Jesus was a story or a man created by man as an example to show you what you, the physical man, will go through. In other words, being born in a manger, okay, meaning that where the stables, horses, the sheep, the goat are at. It is basically an allegory telling you that if a man could be born in a manger among the animals, okay, and grow up to be such a great child, then that symbolizes the physical man, okay, what we have to go through, the trials, the tribulations. But know that there is hope. We still have a chance to become that ascended Christ, so to speak. So in essence, that's what that means. But this is not what this video is about today. I was just trying to explain to Patrick, go into a little detail with that. Now, in the last video, a few people, before I even move on, a few people had asked me a few questions in terms of what do we put on the census? Okay, and a lot of people send me emails, so I'm going to take some time to go over a few of the questions that I got in the emails. All right. So check this out. So one of the questions was, what do we put on the census as a race? Well, here it is. You don't have to fill out the census. Okay. Those things are not of the Aboriginal people. That's not of us. That's not of we, the original people of the Americas. Okay. That was a construct or a system that was created for the true immigrants, the people who came to our land as indentured servants. Okay? The people who came to our land as indentured servants. Now they say indentured, but literally they came to our land as slaves. Okay? But when they told their story, remember, his story is not your story. You have to really think of that word his and story. It is two words. Okay? That word is a compound word, and it says his. Now, let us just see if we could. Well, I don't have to go explain that to you guys, but go look at these two words separately. Okay, his and story. In other words, his signifies a third person, and I'm going to look at the definition of his because you see, everything is in. Let me look at it. Definition of his, right? Let's look at this real quick. And I know you guys are not children, but you see, sometimes we have to break things down in layman's terms so that a child could understand this. Okay? All right, cool. Let us see now. Okay, so it says the pronoun, okay, his, used to refer to a thing or things belonging to or associated with a male, person, or animal previously mentioned. So his story, have we ever asked ourselves, when the his in story, who is the his it's being related to? Because you see, his doesn't signify our story. You see, there's a difference between our story, his story, and their story, and the world's story. There's a difference. So when we speak of his story, it is a particular man, a particular people, a particular race. So his story signifies the story of the Caucasian man. It is not our story. It is not. So therefore, the Caucasian man was the first slave. Hence, the word Slavic came from the Slavic people. You dig? So we have to know that. We didn't come from slaves. In fact, we were the slave owners. And slavery began I'm talking about slavery is old. It came from the ancient world, even before it began in the United States. And what we are going through is kind of like a punishment in a way, because we played a part in the enslavement of the Caucasian man. You see, what you have to realize is this. The Caucasian man and woman, or that race per se, they are in a very peculiar position right now. And they have always been. Because I don't know if you know, the entire planet was of people of my complexion. In other words, the entire planet was of the Negroid race. The entire planet. Okay? However, some of us fell. You know, however the story transpired, some people say it was a project, a science project that Yacob, the big head scientist, did and created the Caucasian race. Whether that's true or not, it's irrelevant. But the truth of the matter is, we fell. And from us falling, in other words, when we fell, that means we fell into our lower chakras. We stopped vibrating on that high frequency. And we fell into our lower chakras. And as a result, we created an inferior race. Now, again, please, I am not saying that to say that we are better than anybody else, because they are our children. The parent cannot be better than the children. So please do not misconstrue the message in this video today. But the truth of the matter is, we fell as the original man and woman. That's a spiritual thing. So as above, so is below. Okay, so we fell spiritual in terms of us being aware of our spirituality. And we got tempted. The flesh got tempted and we fell. And because it had to manifest, the manifestation of the opposite of us being the original man and woman, the opposite of so-called dark is light. Okay, so we created them as a manifestation, a physical manifestation of us falling from our spiritual awareness, our forgetfulness, forgetting who we were. So we created them. So when you have this first heavy melanated woman, because everyone has melanin, Caucasians have melanin as well. But when we fell, and all of a sudden, this so-called, well, I'm not going to use the word black because we're not black, but this brown people, the copper people, okay, the heavy melanated people, they created babies, or a baby that looked completely pale. That was a shocker, because you are here, and the norm is when a dark-skinned woman pushed out a baby, the baby looked like the complexion of the mother and father. But because of what the so-called sin, it is not a sin. All sin means is to miss the mark. But however, during our forgetfulness and us We may have turned our back on the Creator, on the Most High, and that was our so-called punishment. Our curse was that leprosy. Leprosy being able to come from the womb of the dark woman. Okay, hence the word black means pale, and pale means leprosy. They are the black people. They are the pale people. They are the people of leprosy. That was our curse. That's why when the allegorical Moses went into his bosom, okay, and pulled it out, his hand became leprosy. Now, there is no way for you to think that the allegorical Moses was so-called white and leprosy is white. How could you tell the difference? Okay, it's like going into snow, right? And putting your hand in the snow and picking it up and say, wow, that snow is white. It was already white. But the truth of the matter is the allegorical Moses was of the darker hue. So when he pushed his hand in his bosom and pulled it out, it became leprosy. That was the birth of the Caucasian man and the Caucasian woman, that race. Okay, the bosom signifies the womb. It is because of our disobedience, okay, the lack of respect for the Most High. We turned our backs on the Most High. And that was our so-called curse, bringing that race into the world, a race that would come, okay, to take down the parents. And they themselves, so they are in a peculiar position. They know that we are their parents, and they know in the book, they said it themselves, honor your mother and fathers so that your days can be longer. And they are not doing that. That's why today they are going through what they're going through right now. They have the highest immortality rate, okay? Stillbirths. The womb of the Caucasian woman is literally not productive. It's not fertile. And the only way for them to save face is for them to start promoting interracial relationships. Our men with their women with our men, because they have to find a way to survive. But what you don't realize is that it's just again, this has nothing to do with black and white or being racist. No, I am speaking the truth. So the truth of the matter is we created our own downfall. We created our own curse. We created our own destruction. We created children. In other words, babies, kids. A true definition of baby kids are the Caucasian race, our children. So when the first Caucasian pale child came out of the womb of this dark-skinned woman, and they was like, whoa, where did that come from? Okay, they shunned them. Remember in the some parts in the Bible when the allegorical Moses, his sister, when she caught leprosy, they had to put her away from the people for 7 days because she had to be cleansed so that she could come back into herself, right? But remember, 1 day is equivalent to 1,000 years in the Bible. So that may have been 7,000 years. So the only way for the Caucasian man to come back into man and woman and not mankind, it has to be for 7,000 years. As you could see, the Bible said that the world is only 6,000 years old. No, it's the creation of them, only 6,000 years old. But for them to be grafted back into man and woman, into the people that are immortal, into the real man and woman, they have to be grafted back into that. In other words, their banishment from humanity would last for 7,000 years. So that 7,000 years is kind of like around, because they've been around for over 6,000 years. So they are grafting back into humanity. But we have to be very mindful that some of that contamination, okay, may still dwell within the original man and woman if we are not mindful of the Caucasians that we are grafting back into our, how would I put it, into our world. So I have to be very mindful with this video here, okay? Because people may, again, take this the wrong way. And I don't want that. I want the message to be on point so people could truly understand what I'm saying, okay? So be very mindful that the original people on this planet they were, again, the copper-colored races, the people, all right? And in England, King James, that supposedly wrote the Bible, was a man that looked like me, a dark-skinned man. King James wasn't a so-called Caucasian. No, he was a dark-skinned man. As a matter of fact, Britain, England, all those people were our brothers. They were dark-skinned. It was our people, us, like us, fighting against each other because they wanted what we had. And which brings me to the video today, that we are, again, the original people of the Americas. And may I reiterate, we didn't come from this landmass called Africa. And I'm going to break a few things down today again. It's not, I'm not trying to beat a dead horse, but we have to be redundant in the message so that the DNA of those ancient people will wake up, because it's in us. It's in us. Somebody asked me another question about the Moors. I tell people, you know what? Anybody could call themselves what they want. All right? I don't identify myself as a Moor. To me, when you look at the etymology of Moor, it basically means a dark-skinned person. So yes, people could call themselves Moors. Yes, we were called Moors. It doesn't mean that I'm a Moor. I'm going to call myself that. Just the same way we were called black and we are still being called black. The same way we were called Negroes and we are still being called Negroes. The same way we were called Indians and we are still being called Indians. It doesn't mean that's who I am. Now, if you so choose to call yourself a Moor, it doesn't mean that you're not my brother or my sister. It's cool. I don't have a problem with that. But what I have a problem with is certain Moors going around telling everybody that we are Moors and we should call ourselves Moors. No, that's your thing. I respect that. Okay? It's like you saying everybody's black and I'm not black. So I respect it. To me, all those things are a form of divide and conquer. Be who you feel you need to be as an Aborigine. That's on you, as long as you know who you are. But I am not Moorish American, because that means you are a kind of American. That's my argument with that. And that's where I have the problem with that. By saying Moorish-ish, English, British, you have to realize that ish, I-S-H, it signifies something. Okay, Jewish. The people who call themselves Jews right now, the Khazarians, they are not the real Jews, and they cannot call themselves Jews. That's why they have to be Jewish, a kind of Jew. British, meaning that ish signifies that there was something before that. So the true Brits were the Negroid people. And our children, the Caucasians, that later became the British, that signifies that they are a kind of Jewish. The original Jews were of the darker hue. That's why you end up having the ish, which is a kind of Jew, but not the original Jew. So I tell my brothers and sisters who call themselves Moors, be very mindful. Don't tell me who I am. Okay? Now, if you want to be ish, that's on you. But I am not Moorish American. I'm an autochthon American or an Aboriginal American, American Aboriginal. That's it, period. I don't want to be a kind of. So I'm going to leave that at rest. I am not here to bash my brothers and sisters who call themselves Moors, okay, or who call themselves Israelites. I don't get into this type of debate or even arguments. I'm not going to get into that. So if you want to be that great, you are a Moor. It's a descriptive word meaning that you are a dark-skinned person. That's what it means if you're looking at it from that context. Now, if you're looking at it from another context in terms of region, then Moors are from Africa. So you be very mindful how y'all put the spin on that. Okay? And no, America is not Africa. because America is older than Africa. So let us stop with the BS, all right? But I have love for my brothers and sisters who call themselves Moors, Israelites, even the Pan-Africanisms. They don't know who they are because they're lost. I have love for them as well. But I know who I am. All right. So I just wanted to address those two things because somebody asked me about that. Okay. So in today's video, again, it's to go more in depth, again, to show and prove that we have always been the original people on this land. Okay. And the truth of the matter is we have always been the target. We have always been the target. It's called brother and sister rivalry. And it happens even up to this day. This present day, it happens in our society where our brother, our own family turn their backs against us. Let us be real. How many of you that's looking at this video today or will happen to look at this video whenever, and you and your brother and your sister don't get along, okay? And you would do anything to take them out. It is the same thing that happened with our brothers and sisters from the other continent. You see, the American landmass is the land of milk and honey. The American landmass is where the Holy Land is. The Holy City is in the Americas. Jerusalem is in the Americas. The land of Moab is in the Americas. So therefore, because of that, our brothers and sisters across the globe, okay, on these different continents, they decide that, you know what, we're going to join together and we're going to take them out. A typical example was the story of Joseph and his brothers. And Joseph had to go down into Egypt. But what they're not telling you is that America is the original Egypt. So all these things happen here. Brother and brother rivalry because of jealousy. Okay? Because of jealousy. For some reason, they may have thought that the Most High, favored us. It wasn't a favor. It was only that the Most High gave us a bigger responsibility so that we could teach our brothers and sisters, so we could keep them enlightened, because they had to come to us for the knowledge. Every one of them came into Egypt to learn. Even Moses came into Egypt to learn. Moses was from the other side. He was from the African continent, but he had to come into Egypt to learn. The allegorical Jesus, which is Yeshua, at the age of 12, Yeshua had to go into Egypt to learn from the elders. That means he had to come into the Americas to learn. But because of that, there was jealousy among the brothers. And they decide, you know what, we are going to take our older brothers and sisters down. So therefore, they all came together and they decide that's what's going to happen. But before that, okay, because of them, that jealousy that they had in them, the Caucasian race came from them. The Caucasian race came from the African continent. Caucasians are Africans. They were the first Africans. People called Africans. They were called Africans before you. And if you don't believe me, go look at the etymology of the word Africa. I mean, as a matter of fact, instead of me telling you, go look at it, why don't we just go look it up? Let us go look it up. All right? Let us go to Google. Because again, knowledge is power. But the only thing that's more powerful than knowledge is the implementation of the knowledge. So let's get here for a second. Etymology of Africa. All right, cool. Let me share my screen here for a second. Share my screen. Okay, so we're going to look at the etymology of the word Africa. All right. I know you guys can see this. Okay, beautiful. Africa. Let us go into this. All right. Let us go into the etymology of Africa. Okay. Africa, Latin. Okay. Latin. Terra, African land. Libya, the Carthaginian territory. The province of Africa. Africa as a continent, feminine of adjective Africanos, from Afar, an African, a word of uncertain origin. Now, the word is of uncertain origin, all right, but it's a Latin word. The Latin word originally was used only in reference to the region around modern Tunisia. Like I told y'all before, the entire landmass wasn't called Africa. So when you have this pan-Africanist going around talking about, oh, we all Africans, no, we are all not from Tunisia. So it doesn't matter how much they call themselves scholars. I want to know what kind of scholar you are, because I'm not going to let you teach me any lies. Go look at the etymology of the word, meaning that the origin of the word. Again, the Latin word was originally used only in reference to modern Tunisia. In other words, it was just a certain part of this land mass that was called Africa. However, because of colonization, it gradually was extended to the whole continent. Derivation from a Phoenician cognate of Arabic afa, dust, earth. It is tempting. Okay? So that's what Africa is. All right? Africa, African. Let us go look at the word. African. Okay, I think we already did that, but I know there was more from that. Let me see. African American. All right? African American. Okay? Let us look up the word African American. African American. Okay, let us look at that. African American. There are isolated instances from the late 18th and early 19th centuries, but the modern use is a reinvention first attested in 1969 in reference to the American Teachers Association, which became the preferred term in some circles for U.S. blacks, a noun or adjective by the late 1980s. Now, let me break that down for you guys, okay? It says, there are isolated instances from the late 18th and 19th centuries, but the modern use is a reinvention from first attested in 1969 in reference to the African Teachers Association. Guess who was a part of the African American Teachers Association? Jesse Jackson, which became the preferred term in the circles for the U.S. black noun or adjective by the late 80s, which was 1988. That's when Jesse Jackson termed us again African American. Why? Because in 1988, when you have the House of Congress Resolution 331 that stated that the United States Constitution was created by our ancestors and they have an obligation to deal with us from a government to government basis, what did they do? They put Jesse Jackson out there to call you African American, another distraction, because they were giving your ancestors credit for forming the United States, for forming the Constitution, letting you know that this is your government. The original government was yours, okay? And they created a shadow government from your government. But of course, they had to put a distraction, Jesse Jackson, to call you African American, put you right back into what's called slavery on paper genocide. Now, very commonly used in Negro press, Afro-American is attested in 1859. So let me ask you a question. So if African American was literally came about in the 1960s, what were you called before that? And if African American came in where it says in the 1920s, what were you called before that? Attested Afro-American came in 1853. In Freeman's publication, Canada, Afro-American, 1817 as a noun, 1826 as a description, as an adjective. Okay, because what they realized in 1817, they call us Afro-American, Africo-American, meaning that they were calling us as a noun. But I guess they realized that wasn't us. So it had to become a descriptive term in 1826. And it was common in abortion. I'm getting tongue tied right now. Sorry about that, but I get a little emotional when I read these things. But basically, this word, abortionalist and colonization society writings, because it hurts me to know that the truth is right in front of our faces, and our people can't see it. And I really get emotional when I read things like that, because it hurts, man. You know what I mean? It hurts. So again, brothers and sisters, even Africans, like I said before, are not Africans. They don't call themselves Africans. All right. They have what's called a nationality. But the truth is, we have always been the target of our brothers and sisters across the water because of jealousy, because of envy. There is nothing new under the sun today. As you could see, what's happening right now. Okay, it is nothing new. It is nothing new. All right. Now I already did African, but there was actually more. That was actually more, but for some reason, it's okay. African, all right, blah, 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 use of what? Okay, there we go. That's what I was looking for. That's what I was looking for. African, the noun. Native or inhabitant of Africa. Now we know what Africa really, what was called Africa, but now the entire continent is called Africa. From Latin, Africanus, adjective of Africa, African. From Africa, see Africa. Used of white residents of Africa from 1815. From 1815. Used of black residents of the US from the 18th century, when especially meant one brought from Africa, and sometimes was contrasted to native born Negro as an adjective by 1560s pertaining to Africa of Africans. All right. So once again, when you call yourself an African, know that Caucasians will also call Africans. I just wanted to point that out to you guys. All right. So no, we are not Africans. We are Americans. All right. We have always been here from time immemorial. And that's what's going on right now. Our brothers and sisters, got together with the children that they created. Okay. That the children that they created to cause havoc on earth. They joined together with them to fight their parents, to fight the original people, to fight the mothers and fathers of civilization. And when I say their parents, I'm talking about the mothers and fathers of civilization. We are the mothers and fathers of civilizations in the Americas. And that's the honest truth. I already told you guys about the Alex Haley story, but let us go further in detail. Let's take a trip down memory lane for his story. Again, it's his story. All right. So I'm going to read here. This book is from History of the World. All right. And I will put the link below when I'm done. But I'm just going to read a couple of things in there for you guys. All right. I'm going to start from here. Let me see if I could from here. All right. I hope you can see the cursor right here where it says the king. All right. The king, having heard this violent abuse, summoned his council, and after all these inhuman cruelties were represented to them, he desired them to say freely what, in their opinion, ought to be done with so much bestiality was related by the monks. Therefore, without further consideration, it was decided that the Indians from the mainland should be given as slaves, unless they would leave off such serious crimes, would become Christians, and would learn from the Spaniards to live orderly like men. Okay, now that word Indian here is a very troublesome word. Okay, because you have natives today who were put in our place and they were called the Indians. But today, because things have to fall back in order, because things have to fall back in place, and again, it's a spiritual thing. The natives today don't like being called Indians. They will tell you in their own words, we are not Indians. We are not the Indians. We are natives. And they're correct, because they were not the people called Indians. They were not the people called Indians. Now, I'm not saying that we are Indians. What I'm saying is we were the first people called Indians. And that's who they're speaking of in that book. All right. And the only way it is saying that, therefore, without further consideration, it was decided that the Indians, it was decided for us. from the mainland, which is the mainland is within the United States, the mainland should be given as slaves. Let me ask you a question. How many natives do you know went into slavery? You see, you have to ask logical questions. What Indians are they talking about? They're not talking about the Indians from India right now, which was actually Hindustan. They're talking about the Negro, the people who call themselves Black, African American on the American continent. That's who they're talking about. The original people called Indians. They were taken into slavery. Show me one book where you saw the so-called natives today were enslaved globally. Show me that. You can't show me that because it never happened. So they know politically they are correct. They are not the Indians. That's why they don't like being called Indians. They would rather be called natives. And they're right. They are natives. In other words, the new definition of native, that's who they are. The new definition that was given by the federal government, they are actually correct about that. Okay, the king then confirmed their decisions and drew up a commission which he conferred to Diego de Nequaza and Alfonso de Hojada, who went over to those provinces with the title of governors, that is Nequasa of Veracruz and Hodea of Carthagena, which orders that before they wage war, the holy evangelists should be preached to the natives, and that they should be admonished to live peacefully like good men. In other words, they were saying that we were not good men, we were savages. All right, that they were to be perfectly friendly with the Spaniards and forswear their grievous sins. Okay, just because we fought against them, just because when they came to us with their religion, their Bible, that Jesus stuff, we fought against it. And that was what, okay, they say, okay, you know what? We're going to treat y'all as men if y'all became Christians. So I'm telling my people today, look into the history of where this Christianity came from. Okay? Don't be so hasty to defend a religion that was used to destroy our ancestors, your ancestors. We were not called Christians. We didn't know of any Christianity. We didn't know of no type of Jesus, period. And that's why they had to put it on every corner. Look into the history, man. So let me continue. It says, if they obeyed these commands, the king of Castile would grant them liberty and regard them as friends and vassals. But if they would not, they should be seized, made slaves, burnt or killed, and exposed to all kinds of slaughter, both of their limbs and their lives. I fully believe that if Jesus Christ, our Savior and Redeemer, had sent his holy apostles into the world to preach the holy evangelists under a similar commission, they would not have brought so many kingdoms and more powerful princes to submit with the holy humility to the cross, kneeling and adoring his divine law with all their heart. We must, however, consider the difference between the wisdom of God and that of man. The two governors accordingly sailed to Cadiz in 1509 and arrived safely at La Española. Hodea purchased four vessels, and collected above 400 soldiers at his own expense, and thus started from San Diego, commissioning the Baxiller Martin de Enciso, with under royal appointment, was going as principal judge to that very important government to go to his assistance as soon as possible with men and horses, artillery, and munitions of every sort. Okay, when Hodea arrived at Carthagena, he leaped out shore and by an interpreter promulgated the king's orders to the Indians, entreating them to live in peace, be friends with the Christians, live of their bad habits, and receive the faith of Christ. Okay, so once again, I am showing you that Christianity was brought to our people, okay, to to destroy our people. What make these people think today that back then Jesus didn't come to save you? Jesus came to destroy you. What make you think he's going to save you today? And a lot of people may look at this video as blasphemy, but you guess what? You don't know the truth. The truth hurts. And these people are in denial. Let me tell you something. People who go to church in these churches, they are the worst off. They are the most hypocrites. They're the most hateful people. They're the most judgmental people. And I'm showing you in black and white how you became Christians. When these people came to our land, you heard what they said? Our people would rather be killed. It says, I'm going to show you again, because I'm not making this up. Okay? I'm not making this up. I'm going to show you right there. All right? I'm going to show you. They said that we had bad habits. They called us sinners, right? And they would not kill us or burn us if we became Christians. And guess what? A lot of our ancestors would rather be burnt and killed before they became Christians. But guess what? If all of them had stood that ground, then I guess we wouldn't be here, because everybody would have been burnt off. So some of them had to become Christians. Some of them had to sacrifice their awareness of their spirituality and down their spirituality to become Christians. Okay? To become the slaves of these people. So, brothers and sisters, the awakening is taking place, and we have to realize what's happening. Now, I read this to you guys before, but we're going to go into this again to prove and show, all right, that everything I'm speaking of, you could go check it out. Go check it out yourself. Now, I'm going to read from the historical account of the North American Indians, and that book is on our nation's website, okay? So you could go check it out. All right, it says, Chapter 1, Introductory. My design in the following pages is rather to collect a series of facts and observations. A fact, okay? It is facts. It is not an opinion. There's a difference between a theory that life originated in Africa. That's a theory. And a fact. It's a fact, okay? Bearing on the recent and present state and character of the North American Indians, than to furnish an account of their remote history. Okay, now it says their history, not his story. Okay, that's the difference. Whether they are not the Aborigines, whether their derivation is to be sought among the Tartars, who in ages past, according to the sublime hypothesis of Governor DeWitt Clinton. Like I said before, we have heard that name. We so love the Clintons, the people who literally helped destroy us, overran and exterminated nations, who then inhabited great part of North America. So these people are of a long line of people that have always destroyed our people. But we always love our oppressors, don't we? Because you know what? We don't study, we don't do history. Okay, we don't do research. And not all of us, okay? And that's why I said we, because I don't want to just say you, all right? And that's why I'm teaching today. I'm preaching. I'm showing you the information. And who had made considerable progress in the arts of civilized life, whether the theory adopted by Adair and Dr. Bodinot be true, that they are the descendants of the long lost 10 tribes of Israel, whether in short, America was peopled from any of the countries of the old hemisphere or those from America, are questions which, however interesting, I leave to be discussed by abler antiquarians than myself. I'm going to continue here. My anxiety awakened by the present oppressed and demoralized condition of the Red Indians has indeed glanced backwards a few years to ascertain their character previous to their intercourse with European men. Now, when they say the Red Indians, they're not talking about the skin tone, because we are the copper-colored races. They're talking about that undertone. The majority of us, when you look at us, you would see that undertone reddish. That's what they mean. When you look at Indian red, I've showed you guys this before, which I'm going to take a moment to show you again, because like I said, the redundancy of that information will awaken the DNA in a lot of us. Okay? the truth will eventually resonate, and you will see exactly what I'm talking about. When they speak of Indian red, they're not talking about, you know, the pale man. Okay, let's look at it right now. Crayola red. All right, let's look at that, which is the Indian red. Indian red. All right, Indian red. Indian red crayon. Okay, so if we go look at images of the Indian red crayon, all right, look, you see the Indian red crayon. Here we go. This is what it looks like. That's us. Okay, that's us. But they had those crayons in school and they took them off. They took them out of the schools because they don't want the children to know. Be like, hold up, that's the Indian red crayon. That looked like me. So that's what they are talking about, the red man. That's us. Okay? Let us continue here. So in other words, they're talking about that intercourse with the European man. And I'm reading from here, okay? So just so you guys know where the cursor is at. And I think it might be safely asserted that until that fatal period of their history, again, it's not saying of history, of their history, they're specifically speaking of we, the people, the American Aborigines. They were in the unsophisticated qualities of the mind, one of the noblest people on earth. You hear that? One of the noblest people on earth. But yet still when they came, they called us savages. I wonder why, right? Now let us go look at the word noble. And I'm not saying you guys are stupid now, please. That's not what I'm insinuating, but I want you guys to see things for yourself. Definition of noble. One of the noblest people on earth. Okay, definition of noble. What am I, man? Definition of noble. What am I doing here? Give me a second here, guys. All right. Definition of noble. Check this out. Belonging to a hereditary class with high social or political status, aristocratic, having or showing fine personal qualities or high moral principles and ideals. All right, check this out again. Noun, especially in former times, a person of noble rank or birth. Man, that's us. That's us. One of the most noblest people on earth. But yet still when these people came to us, they called us savages. Why? Because we didn't want to accept their religion. So they had to call us savages so that they could brutalize us and make it okay with the world. Because they wanted to Christianize us. And guess what? It was our own brothers and sisters who was doing that. The ones who look like us. So I'm going to continue. It says right here, it is indeed astonishing how, without the aid of science or letters, they could have acquired so much of that moral power, not just moral, but power, dignity, and courtesy, which in our pride we attribute to exclusively to civilized life. Their religious belief is, to say the least of it, purer than that of the refined and philosophical Greece and Rome. Man, they are talking about you. They are talking about our ancestors. Okay? In fact, I'm not going to say there. Our religious, and I'm reading here, okay? Our religious belief is, to say the least of it, purer than that of refined philosophical Greece and Rome. So why today do we have all the religious practices of Rome and Greece, not knowing that ours supersede theirs? It was more pure. We had the purer form of what's called religion. That's why King James came to the Americas and went back to Britain and created the 1611, because he came here to learn Egypt. My brothers and sisters, how much more can I show you? But we allowed ourselves to fall so far. Now we have been governed by ecclesiastic laws that came from Rome and Greece. Christianity, Islamism, Catholicism. We had a purer form of religion, but it was watered down. and they followed its doctrines with perfect sincerity. Okay? They followed the doctrines with perfect sincerity. Do you know what that means? Perfect. Not just sincerity, but perfect. So, what happened to you, my brother? What happened to you, my sister? Why do we treat each other the way we do when we came from a perfect lineage of ancestors that was sincere? You see, what we are dealing with today is because it was learned behaviors. And a lot of our people are contaminated. They are contaminated. They are damaged. They are hurt. Misery love company. All right? But we can't, we, people, the doctrines with perfect sincerity. Okay? Now, man, man, I'm just saying. And I'm here right now, okay? So you guys know. Neither infidelity, lukewarmness, nor hypocrisy in regard to spiritual matters is ever found among them, excepting indeed their prophets, priests, and conjurers. Okay? We didn't have no type of hypocrisy in us. So now when you have these Christians and these religious people during the week, they hate you, they gossip, they curse you out, they drink, they smoke. Okay? And then on Sunday and Saturday, they go to church. This religious people, that's a form of hypocrisy that didn't exist among us. Neither infidelity that never exists among our ancestors. So were we a perfect people? You damn right. That's what they are saying. So I want you to know that's the DNA that you have in you. That's the DNA that we have in us. But it had to be suppressed because they don't want us to know who we are. They don't want you to know how great you are. But I'm here to tell you today that you are great. And we had prophets, we had priests, and we had conjurers. Okay? Because we conjure up the spirits of our ancestors who came before us. Hence the word God. Okay? Let us go look at the etymology of the word God, because you see, I like to show y'all the proof. You see, I don't just like to speak about it. I'm going to show you the proof. Etymology. Hold on. Etymology of God. Let's go look at that. Okay, etymology of the word God. I've done this before, but like I said, redundancy is the key, because I have to show you over and over again until it resonates in your spirit and in your soul. Let us go look at the etymology of the word God. Okay, Old English God. Old English God. Okay, supreme being, deity, the Christian God. Well, if you're a Christian, then that's your God, but that's not my God. Okay, image of a God, godlike person, from Proto-Germanic, Gothan source, also of Old Saxon, Old Frisian, Dutch God, Old High German Gott, Old Neus, etc., etc. All right, it says that which is invoked. That is what the word means, invoked. Source also of Old Church Slavonic. Slavonic, the source also of Old Church. Who were the Slavs? The Slavs were the Caucasian people. That's their God. The God in the Bible is their God. A God that go around killing babies, taking people's lands. Invoked, an epithet of Indra, from root gu, to call, to invoke. But some trace it to pi gu, to poured, from root gu, to pour a libation. To pour also in phrase kut gaya, poured earth, referring to a burial mound. Where did they have all the burial mounds at? Right here in the Americas. Where did they pour libations to our ancestors, honor our ancestors? Right here in the Americas. So when they came to Egypt and they learned everything that we were doing, they took one word and created that word so it could carry the energy of everything that we did, called God, that one word. Okay, it is to invoke. So my question to you is, again, when you say God, what type of energy are you evoking? You are evoking the energy of your oppressors, man. And that's why when they taught us the word God, our ancestors refused to use it. They would rather use the Great Spirit. But because of this lost Negroes today, that's what's happening. But I'm here to tell y'all, I'm here to bring the knowledge to you guys and do what you want with it. Okay? Do as you please. And I'm going to continue here. It says, and again, I'm reading from the manners, the history and manners, all right, of and customs of the North American Indian. They're talking about us. We are told by M.D. de La Salle in the account of his last expedition and discoveries in North America in 1678 that at the decrease of the moon, the Indians carried a great dish for their greatest dainties to the door of the temple as an oblatory sacrifice, which the priests offered to their god, and then they carried at home and feasted themselves with it. Here, at any rate, is a little touch of sacerdotal refinement worthy of European fiera. Okay, their languages are characterized by abundance. Now, again, my brothers and sisters, the word language is here. You see, we are going to read to understand, understand, and overstand. You see, in school, they teach you how to read and read fast and finish. I'm going to teach you how to read and start. There's a difference. We are not going to finish. We're going to start today. So we are going to read with understanding. Their languages, meaning that we had more than one. Let me ask you a question today. How many languages do you speak? You don't speak Ing no more. You speak Glish that was taught to you by your brothers and sisters across the waters because they came and took our languages. So their languages are characterized by abundance, strength, comprehensiveness of expression, and admirable methods in their grammatical structure. Man, don't that sound like intellectual scholars? They are talking about our ancestors, and we are the descendants of these great people. Their languages are characterized by abundance, meaning that plentiful, strength, okay, vigor, comprehensiveness, okay, the ability to comprehend of the expression, and admirable. If you go tell somebody, I admire you, that's an honor. Method in their grammatical structure. Indeed, says Mr. Duponceau, from the view offered by Mr. Heckwilder of the Lenape idiom, it would rather appear to have been formed by philosophers in their closest than by savages in the wilderness. They're saying that the languages that we spoke, the way that we articulated ourselves, the way that we present ourselves grammatically, they're saying that it would have been presented by philosophers opposed to the savages in the wilderness that they say they found. Man, now you see why I am so passionate about what I do. Now you see why I love my people so much, regardless of what they do to me. Because I know it's within us. All we have to do is just wake up to see our greatness. And it says, and in their oratory, meaning that in the way we speak, which they take great pains to cultivate, they have never been exceeded. It has never been exceeded in ancient or modern senates for permanent argument and eloquence, both imaginative and pathetic. Man, I mean, do you want me? Let us read this again because we are reading to start and not finish. It says, and in their oratory, meaning that in the way we speak, the way we articulate ourselves, which they take great pains to cultivate, they have never been exceeded. Okay, the way we speak, the way we articulate ourselves, it has never been exceeded. Why you think everyone in the world is trying to speak like us? Why you think they are trying to, imitate everything that we do? Because the standard that we set, it has never been exceeded around the world. And guess what they say? In ancient or modern times. In other words, it has never been exceeded. And the eloquence, both imaginative and pathetic. Governor Clinton, speaking of the Iroquois or the Five Nations, tells us that the exterior relations, generally interests, and national affairs were conducted and superintended by a great council assembled annually in Oganga, the central canton composed of the chiefs of each republic. Each republic, like I told y'all before, even before July 4th of 1776, there was no such thing as the United States. Okay? Even before the 13 colonies, we had republics. And I'm talking about even before that, we were just one people. Yes, we had our own so-called governments, and each so-called tribe had their own chiefs, etc., etc. But we had those things in place. We had those things in place. It took cognizance of the great questions of war and peace, of the affairs of the tribunary nations, and of their negotiations with the French and the English colonies. All their proceedings were conducted with great deliberation and were distinguished for order, decorum, and solemnity, in eloquence, in dignity, and in all the characteristics, profound policy. They surpassed an assembly of feudal baroons, and were perhaps not far inferior to the great Amphictyonic Council of Greece. In another place, he speaks of the sublime display of the intellectual power in the address of the Gorangula, an Onondaga chief, to M.D. Delibera, a French general who in 1683 marched with an army against the Iroquois. This rhetorical talent, however, is declared by the same authority to be peculiar to the Five Nations. So when you look at the Five Nations today and you see a bunch of pale people, you know why? It is because they wiped our faces out. Okay? They were put in place to replace our people. We have always been the first of everything. The First Nations were us. The most remarkable difference, he states, existed between the Confederates and the other Indian nations with respect to eloquence. You may search in vain in the records and writings of the past, or in events of the present times, for a single model of eloquence among the Algonquins, the Abenakis and the Delawares, the Shawnees, or any other nation of Indians except the Iroquois. On the other hand, the Reverend Mr. Help Wilder, who has spent the greater portion of a long life among the Lenape or Delawares, has affirmed in his historical account of the Indian nations, of which the Lenape and the Iroquois form the two great divisions, that the Delawares are also conspicuous for oratorical ability. He quotes a speech of Captain Pipe, a chief of that nation, and has made use of the following words in commenting on it. Here we see boldness, frankness, dignity, and humanity happily blended together and most eloquently displayed. I am much mistaken of the component parts of his discourse, are not put together much according to the rules of oratory which are taught in the schools, and which were certainly unknown to these savages. Okay, in other words, they're saying that the eloquence and the state of mind that we had, such intellect, no one taught it to us. So how do we know it? Okay, that is the credit that they get, that we are getting in this sketch right here, an accurate sketch. Okay, facts. All right. The peroration is short, that truly pathetic, I would say sublime, and then the admirable way in which it is prepared. I wish I could convey the reader's mind only a small part of the impression which this speech made on me and all of the present when it was delivered. All right, let us continue here. The assertion of Governor Clinton seems to have resulted from his knowing more of the Five Nations than of any other tribe of Indians. The Shawnees, no less than the Delawares, are among his list of exceptions, and yet we find in the book lately published by Mr. Hunter a most splendid example of the eloquence in a speech of Tecumseh, a Shawnee warrior, the effect it had on his hearers, one of whom was Mr. Hunter himself, was electrical, and I will quote his account of it in order to show that the high opinion of the Indian orator is not derived from any one authority which might be exaggerated, or through the medium of professed translators who might be disposed to manufacture these harangues after a given model into the European tongues. but that it operates upon all alike and shines with the same character through every variety and accident of interpretation. I'm reading from the top here. The Indian the Indian orations have been rendered by illiterate persons sent among them to conciliate their favor, by prisoners, male and female, who learned the language during their captivity, by learned missionaries, by the traders who will not, perhaps, be suspected of romantic enthusiasm, by Dutchmen, Frenchmen, Englishmen, and Americans, and the result in all cases has been very similar. The doubts, therefore, which have been and still continue to be entertained as to Indian eloquence are, to say the least of them, inconsiderate. The probability is that they are injured rather than improved by transmission into the European languages. I wish it was in my power, says Mr. Hunter, speaking of Tecumseh, to do justice to the eloquence of this distinguished man, but it is utterly impossible. It is saying that, you know, the eloquence of that man, that chief, okay, they cannot even describe it in words. It's utterly impossible. The richest colors shaded with a master pencil would fall infinitely short of the glowing finish of the original. Wow. The occasion and subject were peculiarly adopted to call into action all the powers of genuine patriotism, and such language, such gestures, such feelings, and fullness of soul contending for utterance were exhibited by this untouched native of the forest in the central wilds of America as no audience. As no audience, I am persuaded, either in ancient or modern times, ever before witnessed. Wow. His discourse made an impression on my mind, which I think will last as long as I live. The hospitality of the Indians has been pretty generally allowed, and it is no small proof of the excellent regulation of their minds that they are not in the lightest degree addicted to the pernicious practice of backbiting. You see that? We don't backbite each other, man. We didn't come from that. We didn't backbite each other. But look at you today. How many of you are backbiting your brothers and sisters? I've experienced it myself. Okay? But that wasn't in our culture. That wasn't part of our way. So when people talking about Aborigines, okay, talking about being the real Indians, they don't know what it means. They don't know what it means. Because the mere fact that you could hate your brother or your sister or backbite a brother or a sister, that means you don't know what it means to be an Aborigine. We stood up for each other. We fought for each other. Now today you have niggers killing niggers, but refuse to kill the nigger in them. Man, we got work to do. All right? Even the profligate look with contempt on the slanderer, while he is singled out with the finger of scorn by the more respectable, who shun him as they would the poisonous serpent. None will venture to traduce those who sustain a fair and honorable character. And as for the worthless, they never condensed to talk about them, condescended to talk about them. Slander, therefore, the most pitiful vice of little and malicious minds, is beneath the notice even of the Indian woman. A strong sense of justice is innate among the Indians. They entertain the greatest respect for the aged and tender, and are unwearied in lavishing delicate attentions on them. Their friendship is invaluable, and we are told by Carver in his travels with what moderation, humanity and delicacy they treat female prisoners, and particularly pregnant women. Their conduct in this latter particular is not confined to females of their own color, but is extended to the white woman and mothers of their exonerable destroyers. Okay, so they're saying that even the female prisoners of our enemies, when we had them in captivity, we treat them with humanity. We didn't ill-treat our women. You see that? The women of their same color, we never ill-treated our women. But yes, still every single video today, rap video, our women is being called bitches and hoes. And our women are glorifying, oh, I'm a bad bitch. So you're a female dog, and not even worse, you are a female dog, but a bad one at that. I'm just saying, man. But you see, that's what we came from. Royalty. Okay? That's what we came from. And it's in our DNA. And it says the white women, though, yes, our prisoners. So how could the natives be the original Indians when they are Caucasians as well? They are of the pale race. So y'all better wake up and see the trick that was played on you. All right? And again, like I said, I don't want to sound like a broken record, but I have to be redundant with the information. But I'm adding new information as I go along with it. All right? Of this shall I have occasion in the course of my work to cite a touching instance from the valuable pages of Mr. Heck Wilder. I might perhaps be taught their indiscriminate panegyrist, where I go on and state the simple beauty and wisdom of the system of education, the faith they kept in their treaties, all right? The wisdom of our educational system. In other words, we didn't depend, or we didn't allow colonizers or other people to teach our children. But look at what happened today, right? And we had faith in treaties. The treaties that we made, we honored them. The United States have signed over 370 treaties with us, and they haven't honored any one of them. But yet still you're dealing with a people that cannot be trusted. They cannot be trusted. It's not in their nature. Over 300 and something treaties, and they have broken every single one of them. But yet still, the majority, 99% of our people don't see a problem. They don't see what's going on because they don't want to wake up from the illusion. Their lofty courage and magnanimity they display on occasion in private life, which are too apt to stir up the remnant and envy and all the mean passions of civilized man. It will be naturally expected that, having given this summary of Indian virtues, I should say something of the Indian vices, and I am happy that the latter will bear no proportions to the former catalogues. Cruelty and eager appetite for revenge are the chief, if not the only, deformities of their nature, and these are the scarcely ever manifested except in their open hostilities, the causes of which are precisely similar to those which actuate civilized nations. Then indeed their ferocity breaks out with almost demoniacal fury. Their captives are generally doomed to death. But it is not until they have undergone the most exquisite tortures, the most ingenious, unattainable, and portrayed agony, that final blow is given. What they are saying is that, you see, all these tactics that the US government is using in wars, they learned that from us. Okay? The agony and pain that we could put our enemies through, but don't kill them until the final blow. They learn all that stuff from us. Okay? These atrocious practices are not, however, peculiar to our unlettered Indians. The metal boot and wedge, the thumb screw, the rack, the gradual burning of Smithfield, the religious butchery of the bloody Piedmontese, who rolled mother with infant down the rocks, the dismemberment by horses, Luke iron crowned, and Damien's bed of steel, sufficiently attest the claims of enlightened man to distinction in the art of torture. But the Five Nations, says Governor Clinton in his masterly and eloquent discourse, notwithstanding their horrible cruelty, are in one respect entitled to singular commendation for the exercise of humanity. Those enemies they spared in battle, they made free, whereas with all other barbarous nations, and he might have added with the most civilized nations, slavery was the commutation of death. But it becomes not us, We value the characters of our forefathers. It becomes not the civilized nations of Europe who have had American possessions to invade against the merciless conduct of the savage. His appetite for blood was sharpened and whetted by European investigation, and his cupidity was enlisted on the side of cruelty by every temptation. Our author is seeking for the causes of extenuate the inhumanity of the Indians, might have said something of their natural and just resentment of the aggressions and tyranny of the man of Europe, by whom they have been reduced to the lowest state of wretchedness. Okay, and you know, this part right here rings volume to me. Okay, because we were a people of very high standards in its highest form. Okay, very civilized people, but they call us uncivilized. Okay, they brought us to our lowest form. Isn't that what they are doing today? My brothers and sisters, there is nothing new under the sun. Nothing new under the sun whatsoever. All right. And the lowest state of wretchedness, isn't that what these Christians are singing to church today? That saved a wretch like me? Hmm? As y'all can see, man, it's here in black and white. In the wars between France and England and their colonies, their Indian allies were entitled to a premium for every scalp of an enemy. In the war preceding 1703, the government of Massachusetts gave 12 pounds for every Indian scalp. And even in Pennsylvania, they have the Indian Scalp Act. Okay? They gave 12 pounds for every Indian scalp. 12 pounds is roughly about, I would say the pound right now is about $4 and change for $1 US. So it would probably be about 12 times 4, about 36, 32, about $40 for an Indian scalp in 1703. In that year, the premium was raised to 40 pounds. In other words, close to $80, a little over $80. But in 1722, it was augmented to 100 pounds. So 100 pounds was given for an Indian scalp, about $400 US, a sum sufficient to purchase considerable extent of American land. So in other words, they scalped our ancestors and took that money to buy the land. So how do you think these people are going to rest at ease? They can't, because the land that they live on is built and was bought with the blood of our ancestors, and our ancestors are not going to rest until we are restored. An act was passed on the 25th of February 1746 by the American colonial legislature, entitled an act of giving a reward for such scalps. Not content with this execrable population of their minds by the agency of lucre, we have sown party division among the Indians, which in all is discordant shapes, rages with uncontrolled sway. Their nations are split up into fragments. The son is arrayed against the father, brother against the brother, and families against families, tribes against tribes, and cantons against cantons. Now let me ask you a question. Didn't in the Bible Jesus said he came to cause separation in the family? Didn't Jesus say he come to turn mother against mother, father against father? Go look it up. Go look it up. So I'm showing you exactly what's happening. It's not just in the Bible. That was what happened. Their nations are split up into fragments. We had nations. We had tribes. Son was arrayed against fathers. Isn't that what's happening today? Brother against brother. Isn't that what's happening today? Families against families, tribes against tribes. When you have the blood versus the crimps, those are tribes fighting against tribes, my brothers and sisters. There is nothing new under the sun. Nothing new under the sun. We are repeating history because we refuse to educate ourselves. And when we educate ourselves, we don't want to learn from the experience. We don't want to come together. They are divided into factions: religious, political, and personal, Christian and pagan, American and British, the followers of the corn planter and the Sagoa Ha, of the Scandonia and Captain Peter. The minister of destruction is hovering over them. It's ironic that they use that term minister. The minister of destruction is hovering over them. In every corner, there's a church and there's a minister administering something that came from the colonized man, from the colonizers. And before the passing away of the present generation, not a single Iroquois will be seen in the state of New York. Isn't that the fact? Even though that we are still here, we are extinct on paper. Go look at the Iroquois nation right now. Everybody look like the pale man. Hmm? And you hear what they say, right? The minister of destruction is hovering over them. And before the passing away of the present generation, not a single Iroquois will be seen in the state of New York. Because everybody is black. Everybody is African American. We don't know that we are the people that they speak of. Yet with all this guilt at our doors, we call the poor Indian savages. Isn't that ironic? They call us barbarians. Yes, they have indeed become so since they were debauched and contaminated by the liquor and the example of the European man. That's why I tell y'all I don't drink. You see this right here? I don't drink. Okay? We have become savages because of the liquor. Because right now they have a church and a liquor store on every corner of our neighborhood. And the example of the European man and woman. Our vices, says Heckler, have destroyed them more than our own words. Okay? Their vices that they have given you, the liquor, okay, is killing you. They're telling you what they did. But y'all like to turn up. It says it have destroyed you more than their own words. I do not hesitate to say that, in my opinion, their ignorance of letters has been the only hindrance to their being. Politically speaking, the most powerful people with the faculty of circulating and improving their natural information by means of literature, they would either not be been objects of the crafty arts of civilized man, or they would have been invulnerable to them, and never could have been driven from their territories, their courage and warlike character unweighted by learning, their things but of inferior force. Knowledge, says Bacon, in power. Knowledge is in power. How with such elements of mind as they possess, they could, unlike other originally great people, have continued destitute of written wisdom, must ever remain a mystery. Okay? It is this important want which couples them to endure their wrongs in silence. They have no means of making their grievances known to the rest of the world. Because guess what? We cannot let our grievances be known to the world because we don't control the media. The media control everything that's being portrayed around the world. So how can we tell our story? The little mediums that we have to tell our story, it is being sabotaged by the people who control everything. But the world is waiting for us. All right? But most look for intercessors among those who have robbed and enslaved them. Why then, I may ask with the benign Heckwilder, should not a white man, a Christian, who has been treated by them at all times with hospitality and kindness, plead their honest cause and defend them as they would define themselves if they had but the means of bringing their facts and their arguments before the impartial public? Okay? So they're saying that the white man, the Christian, that's who brought Christianity into our land. They are telling you that. But yet still, y'all are so anxious today to defend that religion, to defend the religion that was used to wipe out your ancestors, wipe out your inheritance, wipe out your birthright. And you take so much pride every Sunday and Saturday, your best dress. 10% of your earnings go to a minister. You are paying for your own destruction. And that's sad, if you ask me. If you ask me. Let it not be said that among the whole race of white Christian men, not one single individual could be found who, rising above the cloud of prejudice with which the pride of civilization has surrounded the original inhabitants of this land, would undertake the task of doing justice to their many excellent qualities and raise a small frail of monument to their memory. Now, I'm going to repeat that. The original inhabitants of this land. So the original inhabitants of this land is not the natives, because they never went through what I just spoke of. They are not the original people. The so-called Negro, African American, so-called black man is. But y'all still want to be black. Y'all still want to be African American. Y'all still want to be Africans. And you wonder why things are not being restored. All right, we're going to do chapter 2. We may not do the whole thing, but we're going to do some of it because I want to get to a certain point, and then we're gonna go into another part of this video. All right, chapter 2, Indian account of the first arrival of the Dutch at the New York Island. Okay. The following simple and touching relation of this important event was taken down many years since from the mouth of an intelligent Delaware Indian by Mr. Heck Wilder, and may be considered as a correct account of the tradition existing among them. It is given as much as possible in their own language. A great many years ago, when men with white skin had never yet been seen in this land, some Indians who were out fishing at a place where the sea widens, espied at the great distance something remarkable, large, floating on the water, and such as they had never seen before. Now, it says, a great many years ago, when men with white skin. So let me ask you a question, right? If men with white skin had never been seen on this land before, and if the natives look like the white man, how come they're the original people? When we had never seen the likes of white skin before. I mean, you know, at some point, man, we have to wake up and realize the trick that was played on us, man. So natives talking about they're the original. No, they are not. They are not. Because the likes of them had never been seen on our land before. No pale people, period. So there was a time when we first saw them. Okay? Had never been seen. Because if the natives, they were the original people and we were here before, then we wouldn't have been surprised to see the Caucasian man, right? With the pale skin. We would say, okay, well, maybe that's their family. But we had never seen the likes of the white man or the pale man. So how can the natives be the first people? Man, these Indians immediately returning to the shore apprised their countrymen of what they had observed and pressed them to go out with them and discover that it might be. They hurried out together and saw with astonishment the phenomenon which now appeared to their sight, but could not agree upon what it was. Some believed it to be an uncommonly large fish or animal, while others were of the opinion it may be a very big floating a house floating on the sea. At length, the spectators concluded that this wonderful object was moving towards the land, and that it must be an animal or something else that had life in it. It would therefore be proper to inform all the Indians on the inhabited islands of what they had seen and put them on their guard. And my brothers and sisters, this is not too long ago. This is not, I'm talking about millions of years ago. This is recent, okay? This is recent history. So I'm telling you, all that talking about the natives came from the Bering Strait over 2,000 years ago is a bunch of BS. These so-called natives, they haven't been on our land that long. They haven't. So y'all better wake up and realize how his story has been distorted into our story. Okay, this is recent. We had never seen the likes of the pale man or the so-called native in our land. All right? Accordingly, they sent a number of runners and watermen. Don't we have runners in our hoods? I mean, come on, man. I mean, what more can I tell y'all? All right? Not that I'm advocating selling drugs or gangs. When gangs in the hood and they're doing what they're doing, don't they send runners? When the cops are coming, don't they runners go to do things and say, hey, this and that? Man, there is nothing new under the sun. And watermen to carry the news to their scattered chiefs that they might send off in every direction for the warriors with a message that they should come on immediately. These arriving in numbers and having themselves viewed the strange appearance and observing that it was actually moving towards the entrance of the river or bay, concluded it to be remarkably large house in which the manito is another word for the great or supreme being, because we didn't use the word God, we used the great spirit, the supreme being, because once they taught us Glish. In other words, Ing was a language in South and Central America from the Incas, but then they mixed that up with Glish and taught us English. So therefore, they taught us the word God. All right. But when we learned that English, we didn't want to use the word God, so we used the Great Spirit or the Supreme Being. All right. So when we saw that, we thought it was the Great Manito because we had never seen the likes of these people. All right. So and that's again, I guess that is how the concept of God being white, because we thought that they were the Great Manito because we had never seen them before. So literally, we put these people on that pedestal and gave them that title as God. So you see what we're dealing with today? That's what we're dealing with today. All right. Himself was present and that he probably was coming to visit them. By this time, the chiefs were assembled at the York Island and deliberating as the manner in which they should receive their great Manito on his arrival. Every measure was taken to be well provided with plenty of meat for a sacrifice. All right. And for all those talking about, oh, well, our ancestors didn't eat meat, and oh, well, our ancestors only were vegetarians, man, we ate meat. Okay, we ate meat. We just didn't, consume ourselves with just eating meat all the time. We had a high, plant-based diet, yes, but we ate meat mostly for sacrificial purposes, okay, for certain celebratory purposes. The women were desired to prepare the best victuals. All the idols or images were examined and put in order, and grand dance was supposed not only to be an agreeable entertainment for the great being, but it was believed that it might, with the addition of a sacrifice, contribute to appease him if he was angry with them. All right. The conjurers were also set to work to determine that this phenomenon portended and what the possible result of it might be. To these and to the chiefs and wise men of the nations. Yes, the wise men were here. Okay, the wise men were here. All right, the three wise men were here on the American continent. All of this happened right here on the American continent. Women and children were looking up for advice and protection. Distracted between hope and fear, they were at loss for what to do. A dance, however, commenced in great confusion. While in this situation, fresh runners arrived, declaring it to be a large house of various colors and crowded with living creatures. We call them living creatures because we had never seen the likes of a pale man before. So you native people, stop telling the lies. You know who you are. And pretty soon, you are going to pay the price for the lies and the injustices that you have done to we, the American Aborigines. It appears now to be certain that it is the great Manito, bringing them some kind of gain, such as he had not given them before. But other runners soon after arriving declare that it is possibly a house full of human beings of quite a different color from that of the Indians and dressed differently from them. Okay, now again, if the natives were the original people, how come when they saw these so-called white people that have the same complexion with them, how come they thought it was a different color? I mean, come on, man. I mean, am I stupid? I mean, it's basic common sense. Once you start studying and researching, you will find the truth. That in particular, one of them was dressed entirely in red, who must be the Manito himself. They are hailed from the vessel in a language they do not understand, yet they shout or yell in return by way of answer according to the custom of their country. Many are for running off to the woods but oppressed by others to stay in order not to give offense to their visitor, who might find them out and destroy them. The house, some say, large canoe, at last stops, and a canoe of a smaller size comes on shore with the red man, in other words, the man that was dressed in red, and some others in it. Some stay with his canoe to guard it. The chiefs and wise men assembled in the council form themselves into a large circle towards which the man in red clothes approaches with two others. He salutes them with a friendly countenance, and they return the salute after their manner. They are lost in admiration, and the dress, the manners, the whole appearance of the unknown strangers is to them a subject of wonder. But they are particularly struck with him who wore the red coat all glittering with gold lace, which they could in no manner account for. He surely must be the great Manito, but why should he have a white skin? In other words, why doesn't he look like us? Again, if you so-called natives were the original people, how come when the first pale man came to our land, we had never seen that before? Obviously, we would have been used to seeing that if you were the original people. But the truth is you are not. And that's why you don't like being called Indians and you want to be called natives. Because your conscience is eating you up. They know we are waking up. They know we are becoming aware of who we are. And again, not insinuating that we are the Indians. All I'm saying is we were the first people that they called Indians. That's what I mean. Because Indian is a title. Okay? So we had never seen people of that type of pale skin before. Meanwhile, a large hawk is brought by one of his servants, from which an unknown substance is poured out into a small cup or glass and handed to the supposed Manito. He drinks, has the glass filled again, and hands it to the chief standing next to him. The chief receives it, but also smells the content and passes it on to the next chief, who does the same. The glass or cup thus passes through the circle without the liquor being tasted by anyone, and it is upon the point of which returned to the red-clothed Manito when one of the Indians, a brave man and great warrior, suddenly jumps up and harangues and assemble on the impropriety of returning the cup with its contents. It was handed to them, says he, by the Manito, that they should drink out of it, as he himself had done. To follow his example would be pleasing to him, but to return what he had given them might provoke his wrath and bring destruction on them. And since the orator believed it for the good of the nation that the contents offered them should be drunk, and as no one else should do it, he would drink it himself, let the consequences be what it might. It was better for one man to die than that of a whole nation should be destroyed. Do you see the character of our people? They gave our people liquor for the first time. You see, we had our own type of drinks, but we had never smelled that type of liquor, that spirit. You see, the spirit they brought, that's why liquor is called spirit. It killed our spirit. You see, everything, there's nothing new under the sun. And every word, okay, has significant meaning. They didn't just call things names just because. No, it has significance to what happened to the original people of this land. My brothers and sisters, it has always been about us. We have always been the target. So when they gave us this liquor, this spirit, they smelt it. They didn't want to drink it. But one brave young chief got up and said, you know what? I'm going to drink it. And I would rather die than the whole nation die. But today, you have one man that would want to kill the entire nation of our people, selling our people out. That's why I say, for you to know what it means to be an Aborigine, you don't know what it means. The mere fact that you could go around slandering your brother or your sister name, the mere fact that you could go around hating your brother or your sister, gossiping on them, in nature, you are not an American Aborigine. You may say it with your mouth, but you are not. You are not an American Aborigine. Okay? He then took the glass and bidding the assemble a solemn farewell, at one drank up its whole content, Every eye was fixed on the resolute chief to see what effect the unknown liquor would produce. He soon began to stagger and at last fell prostrate to the on the ground. His companions now bemoaned his faith. He falls into the sound sleep, and they think he has expired. He wakes up again, jumps up, and declares that he has enjoyed the most delicious sensations, and that he had never before felt himself so happy as after he had drunk the cup. He asked for more. His wish is granted. The whole assembly then imitated him, and all became intoxicated. Why do you think today they have liquor stores in every corner? Because the experiment was done. They know what liquor, that spirit, does to our spirit. It does to the American Aborigine. Okay? They know. That's why I don't drink. It's not in my DNA because man, listen, I have never liked liquor. Never. Don't get me wrong. I'll have a drink once in a while, but not to the point where I get intoxicated because for some reason in my DNA it rejects it. And I didn't even know about this. But when you are in tune with your ancestors, when you are in tune, when your DNA is waking up to who you are, things are being revealed. After this general intoxication had ceased, for they say that while it lasted, the whites had confined themselves to their vessel. The man with the red clothes returned again and distributed presents among them, consisting of bells, axes, hoes, and stockings, such as the white people wore or wear. They soon became familiar with each other and began to converse by signs. The Dutch made them understand that they would not stay here, that they would return home again, but would pay them another visit the next year when they would bring them more presents and stay with them for a while. But as they could not live without eating, they should want a little land of them to sow seeds in order to raise herbs and vegetables to put into their broth. So you see where it started? It first started by giving you the liquor. Then they give you the Bible. And they took your land. They say, oh, well, can we have a little plot of land so we could grow food and put in our broth? That's where it all started. All right. They went away as they had said and returned the following season with parties much more, rejoiced to see each other. But the whites laughed at the Indians, seeing that they knew not the use of the axes and hoes they had given them the year before, for they had these hung to their breast as ornaments, and the stockings were made use of tobacco pouches. In other words, man, we had these hoes and axes around our necks, like necklaces and chains. That's how strong we were. The whites now put handles to the former of them and cut trees down before their eyes, hold up the ground, and put the stockings on their legs. Here they say a general laughter ensued among the Indians that they had remained ignorant of the use of such valuable implements, and had borne the weight of such heavy metal hanging to their necks for such a length of time. I'm talking about an entire year. We had axes and hoes around our necks like it was, chains, bling blinging. They took every white man they saw for an inferior manito, attendant on the supreme deity, who shone superior in the red and laced clothes. As the whites became daily more familiar with the Indians, they at last proposed to stay with them, and asked only for so much ground for a garden spot as, they said, the hide of a bullock would cover or encompass, which hide was spread before them. The Indians readily granted this apparently reasonable request, but the whites then took a knife and began at once end of the hide, cut it up to a long rope, not thicker than a child's finger, so that by the time the whole was cut up, it made a great heap. They then took the rope at one end and drew it gently along, carefully avoiding its breaking. It was drawn out into a circle form, and being closed at its end, encompassed a large piece of ground. The Indians were surprised at the superior wit of the whites, but did not wish to contend with them about a little land, as they had still enough themselves. So in other words, that's where the separation and the division of land started coming in. That came from the Caucasian man. Like I said, we were one people on one landmass, tribes within tribes with many languages. We had respect for each other. Yes, we had our little tribal disagreements. Yes, we did. But they came with the separation, putting lines in the ground. So now you have Delaware, you have in one state, you may drive like literally 2 blocks and be in another state. We didn't have that. We didn't have those things. All right. The white and red man lived contentedly together for a long time, though the former from the time to time asked for more land, which was readily obtained, and thus they gradually proceeded higher up into Mahicanictoc until the Indian began to believe that they would soon want all their country, which in the end proved true. There you go. Okay? Because of our kind hearts, we wanted to give, we wanted to share. Guess what? They took our land. Eventually it happened. Indian relations of the conduct of the Europeans towards them. All right? Long and Dismal, chapter 3, says the reverend author whose work I had so often alluded to are the complaints which the Indians make of the European ingratitude and injustice. They love to repeat them, and always do, with the eloquence of nature, aided by an energetic and comprehensive language which our polished idioms cannot imitate. Often I have listened to these descriptions of their hard sufferings until I felt ashamed of being a white man. Like I said before, this land, the American continent, had never seen the likes of a pale man, much less people going around, the natives that are pale people, talking about that they're the original people. Stop telling the lies. Okay, stop telling the lies. And because of what y'all have helped and aided in doing to our ancestors and our people, you are going to face the wrath of the Most High. You are. And this is just the beginning. All right, it's just the beginning. And I'm excited. They are in general very minute in this recitals and proceed with a great degree of order and regularity. They begin with the Virginians, whom they call the Long Knives, and who were the first European settlers in this part of the American continent. All right, settlers in this part of the American continent. It was we, say the Lenape Mohicans. All right, when you see the Mohicans, they show you the movie The Last Mohicans. They are telling you what they did. The only thing they did was they replaced the original people, the copper-colored man in that movie, as a pale native, making you think that it's them. No, we were the Mohicans. We are the Mohicans, and their kindred tribes, who are so kindly received them on their first arrival into our country. We took them by the hand and bid them welcome to sit down by our side and live with us as brothers. But how did they requite our kindness? They at first asked only for a little land on which to raise bread for themselves and their families and pasture for their cattle, which we freely gave them. They soon wanted more, which we also gave them. They saw the game in the woods, which the Great Spirit had given us for our sustenance, and they wanted that too. They penetrated into the woods, and they wanted that too. They penetrated into the woods in quest of game. They discovered spots of land which pleased them, and that land they also wanted. And because we were loath to part with it, as so they had already more than they had needed of, they took it from us by force and drove us to a great distance from our ancient homes. Okay? So once again, I am showing you exactly what transpired and what happened to our people, what happened to our ancestors. An entire continent of just the so-called Negroes, so-called Black people, so-called African Americans, but more or less the color-coupled races. Here comes this pale man. Had never seen the likes of them before. We treated them like brothers. They asked for a little spot to grow some food to cook. We gave them. They wanted more. We gave them. When they wanted more, we gave them. When we realized they was going to take over the Indian country, we said no. Then they started fighting us for our land. But those are the people that you worship today. Those are the people's religion that you worship today. And unless you wake up to that truth and stand up against it, then you will continue to perish. and by the Dutchmen arrived on the Manahak. Here they relate with all its details that had been said in the preceding chapter. The great man wanted only a little land on which to raise grains for his soup, just as much as a bullock's hide would cover. Here we first might have observed their deceitful spirit. You see, their deceitful spirit, it's in their spirit, it's in their nature. That's who they are. They can't help themselves. You know what I'm saying? They cannot help themselves. It's in their nature. And we have to understand that. It's in their spirit. How can you trust a people that's taken everything that you have? How can you trust a people that say, okay, you know what? I only want a piece of land. Okay. I only want a piece of land, but they take everything. You know what I mean? They take everything because it's in their spirit. That deceitful ways is in their spirit. The 400 and over 70 something treaties that we signed with them, they haven't honored any one of them. None of them. The bullock's hide was cut up into little strips and did not cover indeed, but encircled a very large piece of land, which we foolishly granted to them. They were to raise grains on it, instead of which they planted great guns. Afterwards, they built strong houses, made themselves masters of the island, then went up the river to our enemies, the Menkwe, made a league with them, persuaded us by their wicked arts to lay down our arms, and at last drove us entirely out of our country. That's what's happening today. They go into different neighborhoods. Okay, I'm going to make you Crip. I'm going to make you Blood. I'm going to pay you some money, and I'm going to let you destroy your people. Man, there's nothing new under the sun. When the Yankees arrived in Maktis, Maktis, they looked about everywhere for good spots of the land, and when they found one, they immediately and without ceremony possessed themselves of it. We were astonished, but still we let them go on, not thinking it worthwhile to contend for a little land. But when at last they came to our favorite spots, those which lay most convenient to our fisheries, then bloody wars ensued. We would have been contented that the white people and we should have lived quietly beside each other. But these white men encroached so fast upon us that we saw at once we should lose it all if we did not resist them. The wars we carried on against each other were long and cruel. Like I told y'all before, our ancestors just didn't sit around, okay, to be slaves. Now we fought. The longest wars have fought in the Americas, and they wasn't against people from it wasn't wars talking about Germany and World War I and World War II. Those wars are recent. I'm talking about the wars that our ancestors fought to save our people and our land. Okay? We were enraged when we saw the white people put our friends and relatives whom they had taken prisoners on board of their ships and carry them out to sea, whether to drown or sell them as slaves in the country from which they came. We knew not, but certain it is that none of them have ever returned or even been heard of. So let me ask you a question. All right. So they took our ancestors from here, put them on ships, right? Where they took them to? Where did they take them to? So when they talk about the slave trade, man, y'all got to wake up and realize what the game that was played on our people. All right. It was American Aborigines that was taken from our land and brought across the seashores. At last, they got possession of the whole of our country, which the Great Spirit had given us. This is our land. This is our birthright. And yes, it has always been about us. We have always been the target to come take over the land of milk and honey. Okay? These people that the Most High gave this huge responsibility to teach the world. Our children decided that they are going to take their parents down. And when I say our children, I'm talking about, literally, I'm talking about in terms of civilization. We taught the world. All right? We taught the world. But talking about the womb, they came from the Africans, the people that part of the world that they call Africans. Okay? They came from their womb. All right. And there are even stories where, oral stories where our ancestors had seen in visions that the pale man was coming. And we warned our brothers and sisters on the African continent and told them, do not bring them to our land. And they still brought them here. And that's what happened. All right. That's what happened. One of our tribes was forced to wander far beyond Quebec. Others dispersed in small bodies and sought places of refuge where they could. Some came to Pennsylvania, and others went far to the westward and mingled with other tribes. Too many of those. Pennsylvania was at last delightful asylum. But here again, the Europeans dispersed them and forced them to immigrate. All right, to immigrate. That word sound familiar? Immigrate, immigration. All right. So you're being called immigrations in your own land. Again, I'm letting y'all see the narrative of what's happening today. Pay attention. Although they had been most kindly and hospitably received, on whichever side of the Lenape with Wehintok, the white people landed, they were welcomed as brothers by our ancestors who gave them lands to live on and even hunted for them and furnished them with meat out of the woods. Such was our conduct towards the white men. Now, call our ancestors stupid. Some may say they are stupid, gullible. But I just think, because of the nature of our heart, the people that we are, okay, that was in our nature. And that eventually was our demise. Okay. Should we change today? I'm not saying we should, but we need to be wiser in the decisions that we make. Such was our conduct towards the white men who inhabited this country until our elder brother, the great and good Maikwan, came and brought us words of peace and goodwill. We believe his words, and his memory is still held in veneration among us. But it was not long before our joy was turned into sorrow. Our brother Maikwan died, and those of his good counselors who were of his mind and knew that he had passed between him and our ancestors were no longer listened to. The strangers who had taken their places no longer spoke to us of sitting down by the side of each other as brothers of one family. They forgot that friendship which their great man had established with us and was to last to the end of time. They now only strove to get all our land from us by fraud or by force. And when we attempted to remind them of what our good brother had said, they became angry and sent word to our enemies, the Menque, to meet them at a great council which they were to hold with us at Lowenwak, where they would take us by the hair of our heads and shake us well. The Menque came, the council was held, and in the presence of the white man who did not contradict them, they told us that we were women, and that they had made us such that we had no right to any land because it was still theirs, that we must be gone, and that is a great favor they permitted us to go and settle further into the country at the place which they themselves pointed out at Wyoming. Okay, again, nothing new under the sun. They called our men women back then. They told them that you are women. All right, they had made you such. We made you such. Today, what do you see? All our men trying to be women. Again, there is nothing new under the sun. Nothing new under the sun. The same tactics are being used on our people because we refuse to learn. All right? We refuse to learn. Thus, these good Indians, with a kind of melancholy pleasure, recite the long history of their sufferings. After having gone through these painful details, they seldom fail to indulge in bitter but too just reflections upon the men of Europe. We and our kindred tribes say they lived in peace and harmony with each other before the white people came into this country. Our council house extended far to the north and far to the south. In the middle of it, we could meet from all parts to smoke the pipe of peace together. So once again, we had peace amongst ourselves. And we came from north, south, and east. And we came together. Okay, we came together and have councils and smoke the peace pipe. When the white men arrived in the South, they received them as friends. We did the same when they arrived in the East. It was our forefathers who made them welcome and let them sit down by our side. The land they settled on was ours. We knew not, but the Great Spirit had sent them to us for some good purpose, and therefore we thought they must be a good people. We were mistaken, for no sooner had they obtained a footing on our lands than they began to pull our council house down, first at one end and then another, and at last meeting each other at the center where the council fire was yet burning bright. They put it out and extinguished it with our own blood. You hear that? They set everything on fire and extinguished the fire with the blood of our ancestors, of those who with us had received them, who had welcomed them in our land. Their blood ran in streams into our fire and extinguished it so entirely that not one spark was left us by to kindle a new fire. We were compelled to withdraw ourselves beyond the great swamp. In other words, they burned everything down that we had, and they used the blood of the people who helped them to put the fire out. Can you see the spirit of the people that you are dealing with? But yet still our men want to go up in their women. Our women want their men to go up in them. And once again, it might be my emotions speaking, but I'm just saying those are the people that we are dealing with. Are they redeemed today? I don't see it, because we are still going through it. Okay, and I don't see none of them standing up against what their own brothers and sisters are doing. So I'm going to assume that they're all a part of the same cloth. All right. I'm almost done with this here. I'm not going to, read the whole thing. All right. All right. And to fly our good uncle, the Delawareans, who kindly gave us a tract of land to live on. How long we shall be permitted to remain in this asylum, the Great Spirit only knows. The whites will not rest content until they shall have destroyed the last of us and made us disappear entirely from the face of the earth. Again, y'all better realize what's going on. So this is what this is all about. All the FEMA camps and all the concentration camps right now that they have these Mexicans in. Only 10% of it is for Mexicans. The rest is for you. It is about us. We are the targets. We are the final frontier. And y'all better wake up and realize what's going on, because the goal is to wipe you out of the face of the earth. No, not the Africans, because the Africans are not you, but the American Aborigine. Y'all better wake up and realize what's going on. I have given here only a brief specimen of the charges which they exhibit against the white people. There are men among them who have by heart the whole history of what took place between the whites and the Indians since the former first came into their country, and to relate whole with ease and with an eloquence not to be imitated. On the tablets of their memories, they preserve this record for posterity. I am at one time in April 1787 was astonished when I heard one of the orators, a great chief of Delaware nation, go over this ground, recapitulating the most extraordinary events which had before happened, and concluding in these words. So I'm going to stop here. All right. Again, that book is on the website, the nation's website. You could check it out, and you will read it for yourself and digest the information. All right. At this point, let me just come back to the live feed real quick. All right. So my brothers and sisters, you could see exactly what I'm talking about. Okay. What we are going through as the American Aborigines. All right. The tribulations that we are going through, and it's almost over. It's almost over, but we have to come to a certain awareness as the original people of this land. Okay. Everything is about to unfold. Yes, a lot of us are going to perish, but at the end, we will be victorious. We will be victorious. Okay. Because it's always been about us. The entire world, okay, has come together to take down the American Aborigines, the most powerful people on the planet. Okay? The most powerful people on the planet. That's why they have to have us so divided. Okay? So much destruction amongst ourselves, self-destruction, because that's what we were taught. Every liquor store in every corner, the same Christian dome that they brought to enslave our people is on every corner. Is on every corner, but our people can't see it because no, Jesus is coming to save them. No, Jesus came to destroy you. Okay, so you have to get it, man. You have to get it. All right, I'm gonna share a video with you that one of my sisters sent to me. All right, and I want you to pay attention to this because the truth is being revealed. The truth will eventually come to light. So let me share it once more with you. And hey, you know, we building today, man. We going in. We going in today, all right? So I'm gonna share this other video with you, and let's do this. Screen share. Screen share. Here we go. Okay, where we at? Boom. All right, this is a video. This is from America's Dirty Little Secret Part 3, and that's from Asar and Aset. Go to the YouTube, and you could check out the information and check out the videos as well. Subscribe, show them some love, because like I said, it's about sharing the truth. All right, check it out.
All I'm offering is the truth, nothing more.
The miniseries is a remake of the very popular miniseries originally airing in the 1970s, based off of the New York Times best-selling book Roots, the Saga of an American Family, which was supposedly about the history of the author's family and their involvement in being slaves, but it turned out to be a total fabrication and a hoax, and plagiarized various other novels, now said to be just a novel instead of a hoax. So the History Channel this week is airing a remake of it, and some outlets are pointing out the, quote, problematic history. The New York Post was afraid to call it a hoax. Other outlets will denounce it for the hoax that it is. The Town Hall website, Alex Haley's Roots, the History Channel, to remake a lie. There's one problem, the website says. Roots is a fake and Haley is a fraud, and a fraud on multiple levels.
And Alex Haley hadn't wrote none of that. You know, I was out there doing it because I don't care what you think of me. I know he didn't write it. The senior editor of Playboy magazine, Murray Fisher, wrote all of that stuff, okay? And if you punch up on your computer, Harry Hollander, who wrote one of the best books on Africa called The African, a white boy. Kunta Kinte came out of his book word for word. Huh?
Oh, wow.
And if you check out the trial in upstate New York, where a federal judge made the publisher and Alex Haley pay him $650,000 and then checks. I made him apologize to him in the court, and the judge said, I worked a lot of these cases, but I never saw anybody take something word for word like you.
The fact of the matter is that white youth today are taught that black slaves and Mexican peons and Chinese coolies built this country, while the vast majority of the whites lorded it over them with a whiplash in one hand, you know, and a mint julep in the other. But the documentary record tells a very different story. Up to one half of all the arrivals in the American colonies were white slaves, and they were America's first slaves. These whites were slaves for life, long before blacks ever were. And this white slavery was even hereditary. White children were born to white slaves, and they were also enslaved. Whites were auctioned on a block with children sold and separated from their parents. Wives were sold and separated from their husbands. Meanwhile, you had free black property owners walking the streets of northern and southern American cities, while white slaves are being worked to death in the sugar mills of Barbados and Jamaica in the West Indies and in the tobacco plantations of Virginia. So the establishment has created this misnomer of indentured servitude to explain away and minimize the fact of white slavery. But if you really read even the establishment historians, if you read their footnotes, even they have to concede, at the very least in the 17th century, that black slavery was almost non-existent and that whites were the overwhelming majority of slaves in America in the 17th century.
Where does the word slave itself come from? Isn't it exclusively in reference to the experience of black people in bondage?
No, it isn't, Pastor Peters. Actually, the word slave derives from the white nation of people known as the Slavs, or the Slavic people. And they were enslaved longer than the entire history of the United States. The Slavic people were slaves about twice as long as blacks were slaves in North America. So the actual definition of that word pertains to the experience of white people in bondage, yet the politically correct historians tell us that we're not allowed to refer to whites as slaves. So it's really a huckster's game that's at work there.
It's that old wordsmith game, isn't it?
That's correct.
How did the enslavement of whites in America begin anyway?
Well, the enslavement of whites in America really actually has its roots in Great Britain, because it's really a very complex story. Of course, the history of whites in bondage goes all the way back to the ancient world. The ancient Greeks and the ancient Romans, of course, held slaves, and the majority of those slaves were white. This has pretty much been the essential experience of all people throughout time, and it's ludicrous to say that it's exclusively the experience of blacks.
Many Christians today are in perpetual fear of the Great Tribulation. They are oblivious to the fact that it has already taken place against the indigenous people of the earth. The book of Revelations was written to the true inhabitants of this planet as a future prophecy of an inhumane, beast-like race that will one day appear out of the abyss, darkness, and devour and conquer the earth, using warfare, disease, thievery. At this point, we are nearing the end of the beastly system's reign of terror on this planet. Let's go ahead. We're going to talk a little bit about the hidden history of the Negro in America.
Okay, the hidden history is more or less of a big cover-up.
Yes.
It's like a big CIA sting cover-up. What they did was, first, we owned 100% of the land. First of all, in the early 1900s, okay? And then they came over on boats, lines, saying they're trying to escape the queen and all this tyranny that's going on and wanted to live here, and we put them in colonies in the Northeast.
Yeah.
Okay? And then we let them eventually begin to kind of govern themselves a little. But before then, I'm going too far ahead. Before then, that Abraham Lincoln was black, first of all. And we got pictures of him to prove it. This is why he's on a penny, a brown penny, turned backwards, facing opposite of the other presidents. He was a black man. And he was putting them in check in the South. It had nothing to do with us as slaves. It was them as the slaves. They were getting out of control, and they were getting out of their place. They were the slaves. That's first, okay? what they did was we let them start to govern themselves, and then slowly they began to do what they do today: propaganda. They began to rile themselves up, do things behind our backs, to unify themselves in hatred. And we were the dignified, we were the classy ones. So if you own 100% of America in the early 1900s, how could you have ever came over here on an African slave boat with slave traders, illiterate, couldn't speak English? How could you have been that bad off educationally and own 100% of the land? That's a lie. And that's what they use the schools for, to brainwash our children to believe these lies. And to have, basically, when you believe these lies, they become your reality. Yeah. So what you're doing is you're killing your self-esteem, and you're thinking these horrible thoughts about yourself and your people, and it's coming out in your waking life. Because the reality is you are what you think about.
Exactly. Even if slavery never happened, especially not to the extent that they show you on the television, you know, you gotta remember, in the his storybooks, they told you that when they came to America, they were indentured servants, quote unquote. That's a fancy way of saying a slave. Okay, they were the ones who came on the boats. They were the ones with the odors getting off the boats and coming to mingle with the native people. And the native people did not look like Mexicans. The native people were Negroes, okay? Everybody in America was a Negro when they first got here.
Copper color.
Okay, copper colored Negroes with kinky hair. America is a Negro continent. I know we told you this before, and I think the virus. Now, this didn't just only happen in America. It happened all over the planet. They had something that they call ethnic cleansing, where they went and they systematically killed off the native people in every continent, and they stole all the land, they stole all the wealth, and they created a wicked, evil, demonic caste system, where the more degenerate and the more recessive your genetics were, the better they thought you were. The more dominant your genes were, then they put you at the bottom of the totem pole. And speaking of the totem pole, the reason you don't see them today is because they had Negro faces on them, and they took all the statues, they took all the artifacts, they threw them in the ocean, they burned them, they dug holes and buried them, and they put them in the Smithsonian so that you don't know who you are and you're lost in time. They restarted time with themselves. We've been here, people, for hundreds of thousands of years, okay? That's number one. The next thing we want to talk about is the corrupt justice system.
Well, but before that, the main thing is they don't want you to know that you ever own this country, because they would owe every black family at least $10 million. Every black family. And what they were trying to say in one of our videos, the Oklahoma legislature, that, well, the statute of limitations has run out, and most of the people that it happened to have died off. And they feel that their descendants deserve maybe a free education. What's a free education? It's like this. If my family owned, my great-grandfather had over 50 acres, had his own business, was successful, they burned it, they stole it. I, further down the line, would have directly benefited from that land and from that business. Because back then, we passed businesses down the line. We were the apprentice of our fathers. Yeah. We learned it and we took it to the next level. So it's crazy for you not to want to give me any money when I would have directly benefit from my family's business.
And they know that, because guess what? When 9/11 happened, they swooped in and gave all those people money. Okay, so it's socioeconomics. They want to keep the real Negro people as poor as possible.
They can control you.
So they can control and manipulate everything that you do, from the religion that you're taught to the education that you receive to everything. They literally control everything, okay? And that's all part of the beastly system that was talked about in the book of Revelation. So for my Christian Negroes who are listening, stop being afraid. You've already experienced the first death. That's why the Bible said, blessed are those who've already gone through that the first time. The judgment that's coming has nothing to do with you. Your ancestors have already paid the price. This is coming for the unjust, the unrighteous, the ones who took from you who took and stole your things and refusing to give it back. Because you know what? They can make all the racist laws they want to make. But what they fail to realize is that there is natural law, and there's universal law. And those two laws supersede any law that they can write on the books. That's the reason why now, every time you turn on TV, some freakish storm is popping up and it's destroying their property. Or there's this wildfire that's just out of control. It's like something out of a horror movie and they can't put it out. Well, you know what? You took all the weapons, you took everything, you fortified, thinking that these native people would never be able to fight you on the level of the weapons that you have. But you negated to realize that the native people are directly linked to nature. So therefore, nature will fight for us. The weapons of our warfare are not carnal, but they are mighty to the pulling down of strongholds. So that's the reason why the neighborhoods are burning. That's the reason why the tornadoes are rolling. That's the reason why the hurricanes are tearing some stuff up. Okay? It's because it's time to pay the piper. It's time for you to pay back since you refuse to do it, just like the evil, wicked king in the Bible who refused to let God's people go. And he doubled their workloads, and he made it even worse. And when Moses went to the Pharaoh and he told him to let my people go, he doubled the stuff. Well, guess what happened? All these plagues popped up. And that's what's happening right now. It's going underreported, but you better believe it. It's happening.
And I want to expand on that. It's just like, how they throw things in your face like being black in America. And they want to blur the lines of what being Aboriginal. When I say Negro or black, it's Aboriginal.
Exactly.
What that means is that I seen a clip of black in America. They had a Hindu girl. They had a white girl. They had a Hispanic girl. They had a Chinese girl saying that they got some black in them. And this and that. Every group saying they got black in them. So they want to blur those lines so that they can mess your genetics up. Mm-hmm. And I don't understand how y'all could not see that or think that you haven't, the Great Tribulation hasn't happened. If picture yourself living in a mansion and your family have been well taken care of for over 10 decades. Mm-hmm. And one day this filthy Viking or pirate storms and starts attacking. You fight and you beat the hell out of him. You force him back. Now they come with the military, drop bombs and burn your house down. You tell me that that's not the tribulation.
Exactly.
And you end up living in a tent afterwards. Do y'all know in Oklahoma when they did that, they put those babies in tents and it rained for weeks and weeks because the native people controlled the weather.
Yeah.
They were so sad that it rained for over 3 weeks straight. They were so sad and heartbroken over what they lost. Mm-hmm. And they could not have cared a bit about what they did to us. Mm-hmm. But I tell you today, if we storm those wealthy neighborhoods and throw their asses out and burn them, mm-hmm. they'll try to have the military here lickety split.
Oh, yeah.
But like she said earlier, we got elemental forces that fight for us. And no matter how much they rebuild, it's going to keep being torn down. And y'all need to tell it, you need to spread it, and you need to be mad about it. Because this is going to make hell come down on them a lot faster. We control the weather, we control the elements. And the better we get at them, the faster they're going to die.
Yeah.
I want y'all to understand that. You don't need to pick up a gun and go shoot and kill them. Spread the word and get the knowledge.
That's right.
Your anger is going to rouse the elemental forces to kill them even quicker.
Yeah, that's the reason why they have to keep lying to you. So that you don't get mad and you don't get angry.
This is why they want you to fall in love with them now. This is why they're talking about tearing down those racist minds. Uh-huh. They want to erase this stuff out of y'all's mind so y'all start loving them and try to keep them here.
Yeah.
Stop giving them your wounds and giving them your sperm.
Exactly. Because I'm going to tell you right now, the ancestors are not pleased. They are not pleased and they are very angry. So these storms that you're seeing, you haven't seen anything yet. Oh, they're going to tear them down. You hear me? It's over. But I also want to touch on this. The beastly system has programmed the indigenous population to hate each other and to never rebuild what racist whites have stolen from us. Many of your television programs are tools that are used to poison and corrupt your mind against uniting and working together to regain your divine control on this planet. That's why I've told you time and time again to stop watching the television. Once upon a time in the early 1900s, they would have to put black shoe polish on their skin and do all types of foolish stunts pretending to be black or Negro people because we had too much dignity and we would never get on TV and act like a buffoon. But because of the social programming and the lying his storybooks and the forced education, now you have Negroes that are clamoring to get on screen and cut up. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you some of these clips to show you how they have been psychologically programming you to hate one another, to not work together, and never to want to work for a Negro business.
But y'all have to understand too, they were using the mafia to poison us. I did interviews with people who live in LA, whose families, black families, were living at upper middle class neighborhoods. And the moment they dropped the drugs in the neighborhoods, they went from upper middle class to ghettos.
Yeah.
So
All right, guys. I hope you enjoyed this. I'm about to conclude and get this over with. Like I said, you will see that in a lot of the information, man, that's being taught. Some of the information that came from brothers and sisters who call themselves Moors. Now, whether you want to call yourself a Moor or not, that's on you. For me, I'm an American Aborigine and I talk to an American. We were called many names, and Moors were one of those names as well. All right, so I hope you guys enjoy the videos. Again, support the book. The link for the book is below. You know, newsflash, everyone's a slave on less. Get the copy of the book because the time is now. The time is now to get that knowledge, get that information so that we could definitely uplift ourselves and get ourselves out of the hands of Pharaoh. Pharaoh let my people go. You know what I mean? So thank you guys for tuning in. Get your copy of the book. It's a great read, man. It's a great read. Support the work because like I said, we have a window of opportunity to get this in order. And if we don't, it's going to be another 400 years of slavery, man, for real. So it's time for the masses to wake up and put this in motion. We are the chosen ones, all right? We are the ones that literally taught civilization. We are the original people of this continent called the Americas. This is our home, all right? This is our home. Thank you, Jazzy. I appreciate the support on the book. All right, so the link is below. Get a copy of the book. I will put the link of that video and pretty much the information that I read from today in the link below. So give me some time to do that. I love you guys. Peace and love. Thank you for your energy, and we will talk soon. All right, peace, love, harmony, and light. All right, American Aborigines, man. It's our time. Okay, peace.